jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out.
Welcome everybody. It's episode 63. We're live on Agencyphonics. I'm here today with Dan Pritchard from who's the CEO of Program Agency. We'll get to you in a moment, Dan. First of all, just a quick couple of messages just to give you. First of all, just a reminder that the audiobook for agents, the revised version of Agencynomics is now live on Audible, on Apple Books, and of course, the book is available on Amazon as well. Agency Coin, probably the reason for my husky voice this morning. We had the launch party for Agency Coin last night. For those of you in the community, if you purchase Agency Coin, you get access to loads of exclusive benefits and VIP events like the drinks event last night. And just lastly, and finally, as you know, we run Agencynomics, the community, on a not-for-profit social enterprise basis. And a lot of the work that's done in the community is time given up by experts, volunteers. And so we are really grateful for people who help us support that community. And I want to say a massive thank you today to a new sponsor that we've managed to bring in, and Santé Group, who have just been really, really supportive of us. Like, they are helping us fund all of the pro bono, all of the work we do. So I'm truly grateful for them. So if you are an agency and you are thinking about your people in your team, their healthcare, the benefits that you, the support benefits that you offer them, lifestyle benefits, all of that stuff, please check out. It's nugentsante.com. I'll put the link in the notes. But if you're in the community, look for a guy called David Booth. So that's my plug for them. But also, it's more of a kind of a thank you because they are helping us create the show and keep everything going, which is vitally important. So here we go. This is my favorite subject, Dan. Today we're talking about communities, and I keep reading all the time articles around saying first of all, all businesses today should be community led, and I just, as a background, I remember sort of a few years ago, I think by accident, really more than anything, we realized that actually there were a lot of agencies out there who were kind of helping each other. And our first venture into communities was, to set one up. And it was done as a good peer-to-peer support system. And actually, who would have really believed the impact that it had on us? Obviously, when we wrote the book, it's very difficult to manage all of the people coming in, contacting you and asking you other questions. But creating a community for us was a great way to bring everyone together. And so we've had a wonderful experience having communities. But you're also a pro at this. So I'm particularly interested, obviously, from your side of things, because you are an agency. How has a community impacted your business? And I wonder also between us, if we can figure out what different types of approaches agencies could take around communities. So so tell us about your community experience as an agency.
Yeah, hi, morning, Spencer, and thanks so much for having me on. I think I went through a mind shift change when setting up an agency with friends 10 years ago. The first 2 years, I think we kind of made it because we went a little, we're head down and we were working inside the business. And then when I started putting my hand up for help, like finances, I don't know how to use a spreadsheet. You put your hand up for help and you get bombarded with people, right? So that led me on a bit of a journey to realize, to start to explore what's happening in the outside world around your business and realize you want a safe space where you can talk to other people who've been on the journey. That is as simple as that. And then I looked around and couldn't quite find something. So we tried a few different things. We went to some things. We started running our own things. We run a little organization called Fast Track to Growth, which had 200 companies kind of go through that with partners, just get business people together and just go on that journey with them. And that kind of faded away, as sometimes these things do. But what that made me realize was
almost it feels like that was almost more like bringing a group of people together for sort of networking, almost like networking groups feels like almost like the foundation of a community.
Yeah, that was sort of phase one almost, and that was a starting point. And some things worked well, some things didn't. We did some events, and some things sort of and it kind of ran its course, and it wasn't quite the right community for us and what have you, but it was really good learning. And then as an agency, again, Tech Southwest was just, we're quite good at building communities for our brands. We're not hard sell people. We're people. We work in a tech space, a lot of program, but we're not the techies. We're the human people. We ask questions. We're curious. So if you want to reach out to people and connect and understand, and you've got to do that around something that's good for them, not for you, actually. So Tech Southwest was we had a company that came down from London. They've been working with Tech City, moved to Exeter Science Park, asked to be introduced to the regional cluster, and there wasn't one. There was Tech Exeter, there was Tech Spark in Bristol. That's about it in those days, Software Cornwall. So we went around and talked to people. So, do you think this is a good idea? We're communication experts. We can probably build something together, but only if you're interested, if you want it. And some people said, nah, we'll never talk to each other. Bristol, Bath, Exeter, Plymouth, Cornwall, and the rest of the world. But a lot of people said, yeah, actually. And I thought it was going to be about building a brand. But what everyone said, this is pre-COVID, let's just join the dots. Let's just work out who we are. Just help us join the dots. The Southwest is where we're based. It's a long, thin region. And so we did that, went on that journey, and then COVID happened. And of course, COVID, everyone was sent home. All the barriers collapsed in where you were. So Bristol, Bath, Cornwall, everyone across the region was in the same room having conversations online. We were the only regional organisation in the tech sector able to deliver that at scale. So membership shot up into thousands. We started getting partners like Microsoft and Deloitte and everything else. And it was like, whoa, this is interesting. So here's an agency, Southwest-based, going on our journey, trying to grow, work out who we are, and we're running a community, really helping people that is starting to run business programs, annual awards, putting out insight reports. And it made me realise what we're doing is we're building a company, but we're also building our own community, but not for ourselves, but we're just one player.
And how many members did you sort of start off with in the community? What would you say the kind of initial amount was? And how many years ago was it now?
5 years, and we started, it was probably we got up to, a few hundred fairly quickly, 300-400. Yeah, because the local clusters were already there. And what we did is we didn't want to do it in an aggressive way. We just said, all the existing tech clusters at a local level, how can we help you? We just didn't go in saying, this is us, join us. We said, what do you need? And they said, well, a lot of our events on a Thursday night in Plymouth, actually, it'd be really good to try and get some people down across from Exeter or vice versa. We join up, specific subjects, AI, blockchain, the people will be out there. So actually, just helping the local clusters connect and bring people in. That's how we started to people realized actually, if you can be the joining the dots organization at scale, so we just listened, and it was a bit of a winding road. It wasn't this is a business plan for us. It wasn't. This is a community that's really interesting. Let's explore it and see what happens.
Yeah. I think I would definitely want to come on to that in a moment, because I think communities have to be built for the right reasons. And I do think, and this may be a bit of a sweeping statement, but I think, the tech world, and I also think when I think back to when I started, my agency 23 years ago, there was no support, there were no communities, there was small networking groups around, but often not that large, and sometimes, and they were some regional, of course, but there wasn't anything that I would describe to be anything wide as a community. You forward the clock to sort of 20, you said 5 years ago, I'd probably say certainly around the kind of 2013 to 15 mark, suddenly started to see people almost sort of networking groups sort of starting to take shape of community. We had things like WeWork as well coming out and building, and of course they were quite tech centric. So I think the tech community has been almost been very good at sort of setting the benchmark for how these things are done, because I guess a lot of them need to raise money and they didn't know how to do that, so they come together and share each tips and stuff. And I think agencies, we did it first when we set up Agency Collective, and now we have Agencynomics, and in a way the agency world's done it well. And I started like Soho House is probably another example. So creative industries have now come together. And I think it's becoming, there's definitely more of a movement around communities. It's whether it's your customers or the skill set, maybe, that like the communities of artists or communities of business owners. But yours is quite interesting because yours is geography based and almost technology based. You've got a slightly alternative.
Yeah, and that kind of geography based, but we don't care. Anyone can be part of it, and we just blur the boundaries. And if you think about it, setting something up around tech. Because who isn't a tech company, right? Think about the Southwest, in Bristol, where there's creative companies, there's hospitality, tourism, all those things, it's quite a good one to start with, because actually we're all on that tech journey all the time, or we should be. But I think you're right. Tech is, because they have this kind of, ladder, early stage, pre-seed, startup, scale up. So they are needing people, advice, wanting to learn from each other. We've got Bristol Tech Festival happening this week. I'm in Bristol. We've got our startup day happening. We've got 40 people in a room, two doors away. We're in a community building, and that's the community going on right now. And I can't wait to, I know 20% of the people in the room already, but the others I don't, and that's really exciting for me as an agency founder to start to talk to these companies and what stage they're at. Let's connect, just listen and learn from them. So I love it because, I've realised during COVID, the world is a small place, and actually the Southwest is a small place, and the UK is a small place if you can find the right like-minded people. So I think going on that journey is I just love it, because it's the challenge is, how do you run an agency and a community at the same time without you get all sorts of get involved in this, get involved in this skills strategy, get involved in this, or and I've had some really good learnings around that, because part of the Agencynomics approach is don't get sidetracked, don't go off on a side that leads you down a rabbit warren, so that I'm very mindful of that, because, and that's why Tech West has to grow and have different people. Even now, we've got a leadership team, we've got a kind of leadership group and other things. So I'm just one cog in that now.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think yes, if you are an agency and you're thinking about maybe creating a community for around, it could be, I'll give a couple of examples, other things I've seen, Dan. One client of mine works in the charity sector and realized that actually there was very little peer support for marketing managers and marketing roles within charities. They created a community, invited people in, and actually, on one hand, it's quite clever, because obviously ultimately you're meeting people that maybe your target audience, but not that they ever set it up for that. They were solving a problem of really, how do they help and support, charitable, and how do they help, those individuals get peer support, network, learn and share information between each other. But is it a distraction? I think it's funny, because I recently put together a new sort of marketing strategy, and in the strategy document, I actually said community-based marketing probably should be at the heart of any B2B service business now. And there's a lot of people really sort of saying that's, key now when you're scaling a business community. But for me, I think as long as it's at the heart of your marketing strategy, to have a community, I think maybe it's not like a side hustle, because I think in your case, that's the thing, is it a separate business that you're running, or is it actually really maybe something that you're running as part of your marketing strategy, or even not even your marketing strategy, just generally your what's the word I'm kind of looking for? Just maybe your pay it forward, like with us. Because for us, it's like, it's not really marketing. A lot of people say, oh yeah, it's really clever, you've got a community, but we don't use it for marketing. We help other people, we support other people. Have we had business from it? I think we might have done, but it's not the main driver for us. It's actually just doing good stuff and building.
Agreed. It also makes you different, because you sit in a world of agencies or others, and if you do something different, you're going to get noticed and recognized doing something different. So we're the agency that is really good at insight reports, or we're the agency that once a year does this, or we're the agency that runs a really interesting community. I think you want to have something. Agencies are full of creative people, so you've got to demonstrate that, and we're all about communicating. So again, you've got to demonstrate that. So for us, it's like, well, we don't need to, it's not a marketing platform. It's a platform for people to come together and do good, and through that we get to meet people, and we're probably subtly showing that we're really good at comms and marketing and brand, but that's there just in the mix. But it's there as almost as an afterthought, just by building something that actually is meaningful and works.
So one of the you probably know Ash Phillips. Do you know he's different now? He was Yenna before. Do you know Ash?
No, not
based in Bristol. I know it's your part of the world, and he gave me a really good piece of advice. And he's much younger than me, and I quite like how he's my younger mentor. And he said to me, because when Agencynomics, the book we just found it's a bit like, I guess, if you're any business and you have a large audience, and you're trying to kind of find a way to manage them. And I said to him, look, I'm struggling to manage everything, all the comms, and I'd like to, do it also because the pandemic, you were right. I mean, it was like people needed help, and we needed to find a way to not just help one person, but share that same piece of information with hundreds, right? So I think he said to me, he said the most important thing if you're going to set this community up is to create values, and like a kind of, he said it's making sure that the people in the community have shared. Do you guys have values in your community? Is there like a rule set or a guide or a kind of a code of conduct or anything like that?
Yeah, loose, I suppose. I think we have values, but we've never really codified it at this stage.
Yeah, and is there criteria to qualify to be in Tech Southwest?
No, I mean it's almost like self-qualified, because people say, yeah, but what is the Southwest or what is tech? And I'm like, it's up to you. If you think you want to be part of it, be part of it. If not, and we've had blockers. We've had people who, we've had big institutions and organizations who's like, well, what is this? Why should we be part of that? It's like, well, this is what we do. If you want to be part of it, great. Get involved as much as you want. The more you put in, the more you get out. If not, we'll just keep going. We stayed away from, we've deliberately stayed away from government, for example. We just didn't want to get involved. You think about how government works, and so if you put the tech founder, entrepreneur at the heart of it, build it around that. That was our thing. To the point where we ran a startup studio during COVID. So actually, there's a gap. Loads of stuff was stopping. We could run a virtual accelerator. We know the people. Program can do the marketing people. We could bring in with other people. Went to all the councils to raise some money for this. This is crisis times. You've got these early stage startups sitting in their bedrooms. They're just going to it's just not going to happen for them. They all said no. So we said 20 companies went through that, and they've raised 1.5 million. 8 of those companies between them, because it's coming out of that program. And that's bonkers. And then they're all friends of ours now, and they're going on their journey. And some will win, some won't. Some will, So I can't remember the original question, but I think
it's more around. Like where Ash was sort of, I think in some ways I took his advice and we created some values for our community. And I found that in the early days, there were definitely some people who, let's say, saw the community as more of an exploitative opportunity for them. And so we were kind of like very quickly having to understand that, we had to try and get the right type of people into the community. And in fact, a lot of people do come up to us and say, what's really nice is everyone's really nice in your community. And it's quite hard, sometimes to police it, but it's trying to make sure that everyone lives up to the values. And also it's quite hard to manage that, because you want to make sure that, people feel like a bit like your team, you want to be part of a similar culture with similar beliefs and a similar mindset.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and as an example of that, we got approached. You get to a certain scale, we started talking to some big global corporations, American-based tech companies, saying, we love what you're doing. We can run a load of programs for you. We're not going to pay you any money, and of course, it's going to, all your members are going to love it. And we're, okay, well, come and talk to us in the Southwest. This is just part of your region, UK. Yeah, I can't. I'm in Spain. He's like, well, you're not going to be part of this community then. It's just not going to work. No. And we've got existing partners running things at a local level, built up from the grassroots. If it doesn't fit in with that, we're not interested. And some people have got that. We've got Microsoft as a partner. The first thing they did was like, let's just talk to your members. Let's set some virtual roundtables and listen to what your companies need right now, rather than assume that it's going to be this block or this block. That Microsoft have got a lot of free training that they can put through Southwest, but they started the attitude of listening to people. But others, big players, have said, "This is the program. You're going to love it because we're a massive brand. Imagine the kudos of you guys." And we're like, that doesn't fit with the community. It doesn't fit with the values. So thank you, but no thanks. Which is hard when sometimes there's there is kudos attached to it, but actually it's totally the right thing to do for the community. So we're kind of learning, I suppose, around some of those things. And there have been people who've come in and think of it as a sales thing, but it's not, and they're quickly kind of found out, really.
Yeah. And I think most people kind of, they're aware of people like that, and, but for us, we've tried to protect the community. We tried to make sure people live up to the values, and, I think generally I would encourage it. I think it was wise words from Ash. I think I'm grateful that he gave them to me, because I still get nice comments now from people saying, "Oh, everyone's really nice in there," and it kind of, lots humans are all very different, but just trying to make sure that, generally it's not, an at all cost community. It's not everyone in there is, trampling on people, exploiting people. We have like a no sales rule in the community. You're not allowed to sell to anyone, and we won't even let people in now that have side hustles that sell to agencies, because it's like they're trying to get in the back door and trying to sort of sell to people. It's trying to, and let people slip through the net, and we have to manage that. But I think it's important to try and protect the culture a little bit.
Yeah.
When
I think those first people who join and get involved, so important. Because you can try and set anything up, but it's because they're the people who other people talk to. I didn't find out about Agencynomics through Agencynomics. Like, the founders, I found it through agency people talking about it. And I thought, what is this?
Yeah.
The book. Look, oh, right. Go and see Spencer at it was a Light Minds event, or, Ideas Festival a few years back. So you sort of, and actually just setting it right around the values and the kind of things you're doing, because you can't control a lot of that. You've got to, by doing that, people who experience that, they are your advocates, aren't they? Community. They're the ones who spread the word, and if they get it, they're going to find like-minded people with similar values. So I think those first sort of agencies setting up communities, it is important to go in with that frame of mind. And so those first people are so important, and listening to them, because they're the ones who it's going to fly or not based on them.
Yeah, no, you said a couple of things very interesting. First of all, you get out what you put in, and I want to come on to that in a second. But first of all, as you probably, most people listen to this show have heard me speak, whenever we do our new business lead generation, where do the best leads come from? Time and time again, it comes from ultimately people's network. I think, the old adage, your network is your net worth. And I think that because we are people business, because we need to build chemistry and trust, and, referrals are a key part of our business, so the networking is one of the most important things. It's not the only thing, but it's one of them. And what's very clear to me is that for you, the community has helped you build a network ultimately. You have now built a huge amount of connections and contacts in your industry, which you may have been harder to have done if you just kind of gone out piecemeal, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's not many agencies that have broken out of Exeter to become national. Organic have done it
very true,
really well, but not many others. So it's like, do we, and we had a decision to make in terms of the rebrand and everything else. To programs all part of that. Do we want to sit there as a local agency just doing a bit of generalist, but we're not going to go anywhere? That's one option. Or no, we've got to hone in on something, really know what we're good at, clear away a lot of the clutter, and go big. And actually, program as part of that, starting to get some national clients as part of that, and running a Tech Southwest. And I know it's still based at Southwest, but I've been in Bristol. This is day 4 this week. We've run 7 events. We've had over 300 people.
Wow.
Startup day, scale up day, go global day. We're doing got retro gaming arcade stuff this afternoon. Eating last night with those investors, quiz the investors. That, as for an extra-based agency of 10 people, that's we're heading in the right direction. And and if you look at in terms of so we're part of Agencynomics. We use the pipe time methodology in terms of so we track where our leads come from now, and we know we're slightly on the average in terms of the networking events, social and thought leadership, because we run Tech Southwest, and of course 3 of our last 5 clients, all in the tech space pretty much, have all been people that we've already known through the tech community. I bet you haven't even sold to those people. Those people just discovered you from the community and have approached you, and that's the beauty of this. It's and you get to know people, and if you get people to know them well enough, you can say, your brand is a bit shit, actually. And in your space, actually, you could really do an amazing thing, just by doing X, Y, and Z. You can't do that when you're when you're one of 4 on a short list come in and do, we do some of that as well. But actually, to know people well enough over a few beers and just get to know who they are, they get to know you. You can cut to the chase sometimes,
what you're almost saying here is that actually the community creates much less competitive new business opportunities.
Yeah, which is if you can be the only one in the room or only a couple of you, and also it's fine if it doesn't work out, because it's also a big community, 3,000 members. We're a certain size agency going on a growth journey, which is great. So we don't need to dominate that community. We just need to make it happen and help it. And that's fine for growing. And now we're in Bristol. We've got some team members now in Bristol as well as Exeter, and starting to get some bigger brands and clients. So for us, finding a community, Agencynomics, at the same time as building our own community, has been absolutely brilliant, because Agencynomics has given us the rigor to kind of put some things in practice, which is able to sort of underpin some of our work in the community, but not to the detriment of the community, because it does help. It really helps. In a fun, exciting way. We get to work with tech brands, which is quite cool. So.
Do people pay to be a member of Tech Southwest?
No. I mean, there's Tech Southwest and Tech Southwest Plus, so it's free for everyone as individuals. And if you want to join as an organisation, then you do. So we launched that early this year. We've done everything the wrong way around. We didn't launch it. The company started asking us to join en masse. So we said, well, let's work out something of value. So thinking about COVID, we run a tech hub pass that gets your employees into 14 tech hubs across the Southwest and an embassy in London type, place. That's the kind of value. Once you've got scale of the community, you can then turn around to partners and others. So yeah, we do the paid piece as well. As long as it funds itself, that's all it needs to do, really. But that's never been the driver.
Yeah, and so when I sort of take a step back and I look at the different types of communities that maybe I see, and there's probably many more. I think the first thing I like about communities is, and you often hear about, I'm quite a big fan of flat organizational structures generally in business. I try to remove hierarchies, and communities really kind of sort of almost like reflect that model, because it's a group of people who are empowered. It's not, it's individuals. It's not, there's no, control going on in there. It's, you talked about, you get out what you put in. It's much more kind of, very much probably a give and take environment. And I think, when we go back in history and you go back to kind of, the early tribes out there, I believe they were very egalitarian. They were a lot flatter than people think they were, and I quite like the fact that community does that. I think it has a cause or a purpose often behind it. For us, it's to support the now, next, and future of agencies. For you, it's you're supporting the people who work in tech, and give them access to other people for peer learning support. You do these events. You've got a fantastic support network there. We both don't charge money, so it gives people a way to get stuff for free, which is good. But then you kind of get paid memberships. So you get kind of some people charge, and I guess in some ways I'm quite jealous sometimes, because I think whilst I like to not charge, because I think we get a more diverse membership by not putting barriers up. Obviously, you get more money coming in, then you can actually do great things like recruit more resource to support and help and those types of things. But what I've also, and then you have paid memberships. Then the other thing, Dan, is I see like the trade bodies. I don't know whether you're a member as an agency of any trade bodies, but the trade bodies are almost also like a community. Like they represent a certain type of agency in a certain type of space. And over the years, I did a lot of work with trade. When I had my agency, I was always sitting on a board of a trade body or something. But you said something that I really liked, which was you get out what you put in, because I always felt like I paid my membership in those situations, but often I was then having to give loads into the community to really ever see any kind of value back. And it's not that necessarily I'm not a taker, so I don't mind giving and helping people, but sometimes the balance may feel like it's a little bit, like you're paying money, you're having to support and help, and actually, is this actually doing something positive? Is it having a good impact on your business or you or your learning or whatever it is? So I guess my question to you is, when you said before you get out what you put in, I think when you're in a community, I'm right, people can't just turn up and just expect things to happen, right? I mean, that's the truth of it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you meet all sorts of people, there's the tech companies themselves, there's professional services, there's all the other sort of suppliers, I suppose, who are sort of, in the mix there. And, there's ones that contact us all the time about this, looking for this kind of thing, want to do that, can you introduce me to so-and-so? So why don't you come along to something first and just get a feel for it? We can send you to loads of people, but it's not going to work for you because you're not part of the community, And others, a guy, agency guy, who just moved down from London into Bristol, specialised in unseen agency, specialised in blockchain. And he's like, oh my God, this, just moved down, a 2-year-old, got them in nursery, found a place, and we're just stepping into this world of Bristol Tech Festival and Tech Southwest and Tech Spark. He's like, bloody brilliant. And it's like, and I thought, we got chatting, and I mentioned Agencynomics and a few other things. And it's like, they're the people that come in sort of wide-eyed and sort of, what is this all about? Actually, they're the ones who kind of get it, and there's others who kind of want to jump to something quite quickly. And it's like, well, just come along, or just, we do this, we do that, just get a feel first. So, which is different to a hard and fast sort of business development strategy. It's not, it's a community. And I think for agencies, communities, whether it's contributing to communities in your area, your specialism, working with other agencies, or if you think about your clients, we've got a client, e-commerce company, shifting towards more and more sustainable fashion. And I was like, well, let's have a look. What kind of communities are out there around sustainable fashion? There's some big national and international ones, but maybe, you can probably get your clients together, find a few others, get some other partners, and just start talking to them, So I think it doesn't have to be big, does it? It's just got to be the right sort of fit and feel.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. I think, and I touched this at the beginning. For some businesses out there, we talk about agencies, but for some agencies, maybe their community, their kind of approach to community might well be where they're geographically based, and maybe something that aligns to their purpose. So I don't know, you're based in the South Coast, in Bournemouth, you're a big believer in the environment, and so you build a community around keeping the sea clean, and you build a community around ultimately you created your agency to help the environment, and your community is actually doing that work. So on one hand, it doesn't have to be necessarily your target audience, a retail community, or an automotive one, or a job role, or a skill set. It could be just something that aligns to the business purpose, couldn't it? It could be anything, really.
Yeah, I think so. There's so many different ways. You think about the stages of business, the types of people in business. There's different kind of department, marketing, CEOs. We like a lot of stuff with tech leaders themselves, because they're the ones ultimately who are going on this journey. So we do tech leader insight reports and things like that. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's so many different ways to do it. I think one of the things is be democratic and be willing to don't want to own it necessarily. You can shape that community. But if you sit there saying, this is our community, it's going to be done like this. I think ours has been a much more of an organic journey. It's like, actually, come in, help. I've got a crew on funding and finance. Can you be our funding and finance for the tech community lead, please? Because take me on a journey. So give away stuff, get other people doing things, and that's been a big moment for us, because otherwise it would have probably just been, it would have been slower and a bit more narrow and defined, and not as vibrant and random sometimes. Actually be willing to say a community is community. If you can't give other people ways to have roles and ownership, it's not a proper community. Otherwise it's just one thing.
Another good one. I'm sure you've seen this as well. So I had certainly had a few clients. In fact, in the early days, I think we used to always sort of encourage people when we first started doing our non-exec work to do this as well. It's probably more important now than ever, which is to create communities around talent in your area. So, one of my clients did something called I think it was, I want to say the words now, WMG, Web Meetup Guildford. So they would create a small community of anyone that worked in the internet, whether it be a brand or an agency, come together, just meet, like-minded people. And again, ultimately, they're trying to necessarily find employees, but through that network.
I think that's really key. You think about the talent crunch. So a lot of tech companies we talked about right now. So I talked to a company the other day. They've lost 3 people in the last month, one to Spotify, one to GoDaddy, doubled their salary and gave them shares, and another huge one. And they're like, what are we going to do about this? And it's like, we've got to work even harder at community, because, those people are still sitting there, and they're now earning lots more. But, those big corporates are going to keep doing that. And in terms of talent and people, they're only going to be, you've got to have an amazing culture, but you've got a really interesting scene. They've got to see what is going on and all the other stuff, the festivals, the other things. And you've got to be part of something. The salary is key, but there's so many other factors. And actually, when everyone is facing that, and agencies are facing that, we've got to bring people into this sector and show them, wow, this is the place to be. We want to be with British-based, agencies, flexible working, etc., because it's part of something special. And if you're running communities, that's got to be part of it, because otherwise, you will just lose people to big corporates overseas, and it'll be just a talent drain. So I think community has a role to play with talent for sure. We've got to get over this hurdle. It's still there, even despite the work of some. Viewing everyone else in your specialism, your sector as a competitor. I still see that in some areas. We've broken down loads of barriers with agencies, but it still happens. And it's like, you've got to work together. Finite talent pool, etc. We've got to work together.
Yeah, it's true. I think agencies, are exceptionally good at that. I think, I wrote an article the other day saying how, I think my inner circle, my 6 best closest friends were all competitors, who all gravitated together. And I'm sort of grateful almost for that experience. And I do think agencies are particularly good at that, I would say, and probably maybe tech world is as well. But I think definitely agencies, because the nuances are there. Like, it's very hard to find 2 identical agencies, because there's always someone at a different stage, a different sector, slightly different type of people, different culture. So I think there is always ways for people never to be so threatened. And actually, even if you are identical, I think I said this week in a MMQ mastermind group, even if you are identical, I've seen so many examples of identical businesses going, hey, listen, there are competitors, but they're also really good. And we're full up right now, and refer business.
Yeah.
Having worked in consultancy for the last 10 years, I'm not so sure it's quite the same. I think it's maybe a slightly different approach. I've been started off with that mindset, but learned very quickly that not all sectors are like that. I think if you're in an agency family, you should be really grateful that you have that, because I miss it. I think when I had Blue Halo, I think that ability, and also the kind of a lot of integrity as well between competitors. Like, if someone I knew as a friend, who a client approached me, I would always talk to them first. I wouldn't just take a client, and ruin a relationship. And more often than not, would lead to something positive. So I think it's you're right, definitely certainly around, and I think in tech world probably the same, because they're probably not all the same, are they, as well?
I think it's the same in tech world. That's more around things like equity and IP. That's when they get a bit nervous, because there are tech leaders out there who get it and are willing to sort of sell equity to go on a journey. There are others who are a bit more guarded around it. Some really interesting conversations we've had this week around that, in terms of mindset, in terms of growth mindset in tech, and there seems to be 2 or 3 types around that. But in terms of the sharing the knowledge, they're very happy to sort of share the journey stuff. It's just when they get to the doing the deals and the tech, because there's a lot of big companies swooping around on the smaller ones. I think the other thing is your clients. We've rebranded in a kind of uncertain time with economic uncertainty, and we've actually, when we sat down, thought, no, we are going to keep doing this. We are going to rebrand, complete company name change, everything, and let's use it to reunite our clients with us and our, as a community. Put them at the heart of it. Have a launch event, brief them in advance. We've shifted to kind of really wanting to work with positive impact brands only. So we're saying no to certain types of companies now, but all our clients, we've made that very clear. We want to work with you because you're a really interesting tech company doing amazing stuff in biotech, or you're a science park doing amazing stuff over here, or whatever it might be. So they've kind of like rallied and responded to that. So we've brought them in closer, just at a time of when agencies should all be doing that, right? As we enter the an economic kind of interesting period. So we've used a rebrand rather than just we've rebranded. This is us. This is our values. We've got all that, but it's more about having those conversations refreshed and renewed with our clients. So this is what we're about. We want to go on a journey together. It's all about the trailblazers, positive impact brands. The Southwest is the coolest place to do amazing tech, to do amazing comms. Let's go and smash this together. And actually, the response to that has been bloody brilliant. Yeah, you're right. This is the time. This is the moment. And I think
that's a really valuable point. I think. It is an uncertain time. There is a lot of, potential disruption to business as normal at the moment out there. And, actually, to be fair, I think relatively most people I've seen have been reasonably unscathed. I think there's an element of commoditization in agencies that's happening. But absolutely, like if there was a time to start building a community, to build and forge ever closer relationships. In fact, I did a talk the other day on it was like 14 tips to recession-proof your agency, and one of them was an interview I did with Phil Jones, who said in the 80s when they had their, you know, their market corrections and recessions around then, he said it was the community of agencies that got them through it. It was it was the fact they all came together, and he said that was one of the main reasons. All the people I think he worked with got through the recession who in this community. So I think communities, I think you're dead right. I think if anyone's thinking about it, it's probably a good time to start to build one, because I think if people go through, you know, difficult times together, there'll be a shared memorable experience of doing that. The fact you were there, offering support when things were difficult. I think it would have a positive impact, actually.
Yeah, I think, COVID was the thing that Textile Fest exploded out, because that was our moment. Oh, crikey, we're all stuck at home across this long, thin peninsula, from Cornwall to Bristol, Bath, Cheltenham. How do we talk to each other? Oh, look, there's this thing called Tech Southwest. That became the community just because it was just luck, really, timing. So the membership tripled. We went right up during that time.
Yeah, I think, and that's quite interesting, because like when you talked about the growth in the early days, you said you managed to grow quite quickly. And I remember with excuse me, with Agencynomics, we grew quite steady, but it was COVID, I think, that helped, because everyone was suddenly more lonely online, isolated. But I would say to everyone as well that it's like working in agencies. It is the B2B marketing, which is what we do, and service marketing is a long game, right? It's something that keeps on giving. The work you do today will pay you back years to come. And I think with the agency, with the community, you can't just go in and think, right, 6 months I'll have a community of 1,000 people. It's going to take a long time. It's probably going to take at least 3 years. And I think there's probably even like a certain number where it doesn't work. Like you might say the first 200 or 300, you get no engagement, or it's very disparate, and then it hit. I remember we hit a tipping point, and I think actually, to be fair, the number was around, I want to say the number was around 200, where suddenly it started to work. And then I think when we got to 700 members, it really started to self-regulate, because otherwise it was like we had to drive everything through. Yeah. And I think, it's still something that's, we have to work really hard at to keep the engagement going. But I mean, I think don't everyone out there just go think you can just do this, it'll work in 3 months, and you'll have to.
It's a bit by bit journey, isn't it? And then you can look back and rewrite that narrative a bit and say, oh yeah, it's this amazing upward curve. But of course, when we launched awards, annual awards, first year 89 entries for 20 categories. It's not great, really. But then this year we've got over 300. So it's like, okay, wow. It was worth starting, and off we went. And other things we started probably back then and have fallen away and we've forgotten about that didn't work out. So you've got to try a few of these different things. But it is. I do love that you've done the awards. I think that's a really smart thing to do as well in the community. Yeah. November the 10th, Bristol Aerospace, underneath the Concorde. When people come in, they come into the mezzanine, our guests, and they will walk through Concorde and then down into our zone where we're going to have a gaming area, of course, because they're all techies, right? And then, we don't want to just do the sit around and DJs, all of that. It's got to be fun. It's got to be different. So,
your demographic is more technical, and we know that. I remember from my own technical team, they do love gaming. There is a persona you can create there. They often like motorsport, quite clear. Motorsport, definitely gaming. And I think the fact that you tapped into that and then you've now made that part of the experience. I think it's important to understand your community personas and what's meaningful for them in terms of brand experience as well.
Yeah, I think the brand experience is really interesting, and actually the things that work for us, you can do a round table, you can do a talk, you might get a lot of people, you might get a few people. We put on an esports event with a local college who wants to show off their new digital and data center, 16 companies, £200 entries, sold out in 2 days. We had a waiting list.
Wow.
So now we've got 80 companies taking part in 5 venues, an esports festival next year, which been a brilliant journey for us. But that was because we put fun at the heart of it. You think COVID is not that long ago, and actually people just wanted to get together, gaming, took a bar over around the corner and just talk. So the things that have really worked have been, don't deliver too much to your community, give the community the space to have fun, to talk, it's the bits in between. The conversations are really, really valuable. So if you're creating a community as an agency, don't just stand there and talk about yourself. Don't at all, especially not at the start. Just give the platform and the opportunity for people to connect and have fun. We're desperate for human interaction right now, I think. And they're the things that actually have really driven the community and the ideas and the connections and all the good stuff that happens.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you've, although I would probably describe your community as more regional than maybe hyper local. I think it's important to, for those people listening who have agencies all around the country, you can still, do these things. It don't have to be national, right? And actually national, it can be a lot harder to manage because geography is difficult, although most,
And that national piece, we're just starting that with Tech Southwest and Programme combined, almost because we've got the Agencynomics network. So the next Insight report, our Tech Leader Insight report, the programme we're going to do, we've teamed up with Climbing Trees over in East Anglia, and we'll get one more probably from Manchester. It's like, because last year we did it as a regional report, we interviewed loads of tech leaders in the Southwest. Let's go national, but do it from a way built up from the grassroots with like-minded agencies who want a bit of fun with it and learning with it as well. So, so we're doing it step by step as an agency. COVID has been a massive help from that because everyone was thrown home and started looking around and seeing all these great agencies scattered all over the place and didn't all have to be in London to fight over some of that stuff.
It's interesting, you talk about COVID, and I think one of the things that I hear a lot, it's like, I'm always quite sensitive to just hearing the same messages time and time again. And in the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years of being in business, I've always, 25 years now, I've always heard people say, oh, we started in a recession. We started in a downturn. We started, and I pretty much think Cactus started in a recession. And I think actually so did Blue Halo. So both my businesses did. And I think actually I think COVID was a good a trigger point for online communities and virtual and sort of normalizing that side of things. But I do think, there is probably this, as we said before, when there is a downturn, it's always a good time, because when there's a downturn, there's usually things that are sort of going backwards. There's usually things that are still growing. And so I think, people, a lot of agencies will probably start up next year because they'll see new opportunities. They might look at Web3, for example, right now and go, well, there's not really a lot of current agencies moving into this space. So we've got an opportunity to move in early and start to adopt some of these things. And I think in the same way, I think a lot of communities, I do think will start in the next year, because I think, as you said, people will go back to their clients. They'll try and get close to them, try and create frameworks to keep them in more regular contact. So I think it's actually something that's come out of this conversation.
Yeah.
Don't look at it as a bad time to start something. Often it's the best time.
No, and if you want to be on it and learning and picking up signals, now more than ever, how do you do that? You don't do that just by looking inward as a business and sitting and doing what you've always done.
Yeah.
Get out and actually being part of a community, picking up, tech community, an agency community, whatever. That's how you hear things, pick things up and start to see trends and go, oh, you're the third person who's mentioned that's happening to you in the last 2 weeks. Okay, that's interesting, So for us, that's, and I think if the community isn't there for you, because we tried joining communities at the start and they weren't quite there. They weren't giving us a local chamber or whatever, but actually finding the right community, and if you can't, build your own, that's what we've done.
So one just quick last question. The technology platform that you use for your community, how do you do that? Obviously at Agencynomics, we use the Mighty Networks platform.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So we have a website, we have a Southwest Tech Daily news site, and we are going to be launching a platform next year. So we just do it through a program.
Will you try and source one or?
Yeah. We're looking at that now and looking at Mighty Networks and others, but doing it in quite an open way, in a way, talking to other organisations, saying, do we just create a platform for one organisation? Do we create a platform that Science Parks, the Tech Exeter, the Digital Plymouth, the Tech Southwest, we can all sit on there together? Because that'll be even more. It's a pain to get the conversations going, and people do sort of think about, keep away from hang on a minute, how's that going to work? But actually, that's.
I would say to you, we've just, because of Agency Coin, obviously, and its ability to be more, let's say, Web3 fluid, Discord is probably one of the nicest ways to do it. I mean, I'm sort of rebuilding the community for coin holders right now in Discord, and yeah, it's, you know, I think there's, you know, there's still probably an adoption in different tech, but if you've got a lot of gamers, which you have, then they'll all use Discord. So I certainly would consider that. I mean, I could possibly even see us in the long term, there's no short term plan here, but, you know, actually migrating to Discord. I see it as a very forward, you know, future facing. Actually, the Gen Zs are using Discord, and so I think, you know, the future employees in agencies are going to be much more comfortable.
Pressure. If you're running a community for the tech, you've got to get the tech right every time, every event, every choice of platform, every software.
Yeah,
it can't be rubbish. It's got to be good.
Yeah, but I like the way that in Discord as well, like you can sort of lock down certain groups, give it special access to people. You have general communities, you know. It's, you know, it's like a pimped up Slack, I think, and it actually, you know, for me, there's probably a lot of cross features, but I think some of the, you know, the integrations around loyalty for us and Coin, it works really well. So yeah,
and I think that's something we're looking at. You know, we've built the community first. It's ironic in a way for tech, and now we're deciding what tech we're going to use to sort of set them free online, rather than just the events program and the other things we do and all that kind of stuff. You know, so yeah, all part of the journey. But again, another great one to kind of be working with other companies to help us with that as well.
Yeah, amazing. Dan, thank you so much for your time today. I will put the links to Tech Southwest and to program in the notes so everyone can check you out. I guess they can find you on LinkedIn as well, of course.
Yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find us 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock this afternoon at a retro gaming bar, 4 quarters. We've taken over that, so we've got 50 or 60 tech people in the room playing Asteroids and Defender and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that, but yeah, we're around. The program agency, you know, it's the new us, and we're really excited about that. And and if you're into tech or comms or, you know, surfing or anything else like that, you know, we are here.
I'm just going to say a quick shout out to Jenny Plant. Thank you for your kind words, and hi to David Jemison as well. Thanks for listening in, guys. And yeah, that's it for this episode. That is a wrap.